Jodi. I'm an environmental scientist with California State Parks. We're located here today at Montanã de Oro State Park, right next to Morro Bay. Environmental scientists, you might say? What do they do? Well, we are part of the state park system that helps protect native wildlife and native habitats for California species. And here today, we're going to talk about one thing that I do for my job, which is monitoring black oystercatchers. Anyone know what that is? They're a really cool bird. They're black, they're quite large, they're about like this, and the cool thing is they have this great big long orange bill, and that's so they can feed on oysters. No, they don't feed on oysters. That's kind of silly, right? They're called oystercatchers, but they don't. Does anyone know what they feed on? I'll tell you. I'll give you a hint. How about this? What's this? It's a mussel. No, they don't eat that. They eat these. These are mussels. If anyone's been tide pooling along the coast, they'll notice a lot of mussel shells, limpets, sea anemones, sea urchins, hermit crabs. Hopefully a lot of you have been along the coast and seen those. Well, oystercatchers eat these, and with that big long orange bill, it's got a flat edge. They pry open these shells, they pick out the mussel inside, and they eat it. Pretty cool, I think. So, they spend their whole life right along this shelf, right along, they call it the intertidal zone. And they eat there, they even nest there, not where the water can get them, because that would be kind of silly, but just up from the high tide line. You just put their eggs right there on the rocks. So that's really important to know, because if we're walking on those rocks looking at the tide pools, we want to be careful, and we don't want to step on their eggs. We want to be aware that that's where they live, and they spend their whole time there. Now, oystercatchers, I'm going to put those down. Oystercatchers have a very small population, and they live only in that band of habitat, right? So they're vulnerable. They're vulnerable to climate change. As I don't know, many of you have heard maybe that sea level is going to rise with some of the climate change. Well, if sea level rises and they inhabit just that small little zone, well, they could lose all their habitat. They could be gone, and then we would have no more oystercatchers. That'd be very sad. I'd be out of a job. No, I wouldn't be out of a job. No, we care a lot about that zone of habitat. So that's why we monitor them. Up and down the coast, from Alaska to Baja is their range, is where black oystercatchers live, and they're monitoring them all the way from Alaska all the way down their range. And we're doing our part right here in California State Parks, with all our monitors. We're out monitoring where they're feeding, where they're nesting, so that we can help educate visitors and people like you, so when they come to visit our coast and look at all those pretty things along the coast, that they're aware that they're sharing this planet, this area, with the oystercatchers. So, next time you come to the coast, beware of where you're stepping. Listen, because they're really vocal. You'll see blackbirds with that big orange bill, and they'll tell you if you're too close. So don't get too close to them, and tell your other friends to come out and look at the oystercatchers.